What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So the Switch Pro talk, despite us not having like a ton to go on, really is continuing to spin up again, and now we have a leak from Nvidia that shows a new system they're going to be releasing seemingly this month, and of course they have to put a certain word in their title, and is having people interested in what could be in the system, although we're going to talk a bit about that here to kind of get everything situated on that, at least on that listing that's shown up there. And then we also talk a bit about Jedi Fallen Order as the previews came out, and they're looking pretty good. And Call of Duty, no loot boxes, but they do have a way to monetize this game a bit further. And the Switch selling quite a bit in the US. It's like, it's a lot. Like, they are really pushing that install size going into the holidays. As always, guys, enjoy these videos. Make sure you hit the like button. It does help out, and get subscribed so you can stay up to date on all the gaming news going on in the gaming world. And I wanted to start with Ring Fit Adventure. It's out today, and the reviews came out, and hey, on Metacritic, it has a 75, which for a game that is mostly a fitness game kind of disguised as an action-adventure RPG, that's not bad. It's fairly creative, I think, and from what I saw with a lot of the reviews that were written up in the video reviews, it seems like everyone who played it enjoyed it and understand what they were trying to get at, which is a way to get you exercising without making you feel necessarily like you are just straight up exercising, right? Like, you're at least working towards a goal outside of getting healthier. You're, leveling up, and you're playing through a game that apparently is fairly long. IGN, for example, talked about being 18 hours in and feeling like they were about halfway through the game. The thing you run into, of course, is most people would play this in half an hour to an hour increments because it would technically be a workout, as they are having you do some pretty serious moves. I did see them in Game Explain and a few others as well. Game Explain mentioned, Andre mentioned that there were some issues with the camera and everything, but overall he felt like he was getting a good workout and having fun. So hey, you know what? It may look silly with the ring and everything, but if it's doing what it's supposed to do, which is get you moving and exercising, I think that's a good thing, to be honest. I mean, why not? It's been kind of difficult to disguise a few things learning in games and working out, and it's good to see that they're at least still trying. Also, we've talked about manufacturing defects around the analog sticks in something like the Switch Lite, where some were drifting, but we kind of write that off as there just being manufacturing issues, right? And a lot of times there will just be defects. Well, this one was really funny. It was posted up on Reddit, and I thought about it a bit, and I said, you know what? It could be faked, but it would have to probably be photoshopped, as you really can't buy these buttons necessarily right now that really match it. I looked. It wasn't easy to find. If they're out there, they might be on like a wholesale site somewhere, but check this out. This was an image posted up on Reddit from Facebook, it seems, and this shows a manufacturing defect where they have two Y buttons. There is no B button there. So it's really funny looking. Apparently it still presses okay, but from what I remember, they are kind of keyed and set up to where they only fit in any one spot, so that you can't necessarily put them in the wrong places when you put it back together. There's generally like openings and then plastic coming off of the button on the other side of that shell, so that it just won't fit. But it is really funny to see that. It's very unique for the person who owns it right now. I don't think it's worth any extra money or anything. I think that was asked at one point in the thread. It's probably not. Just a manufacturing defect that is strange that it got through QA and everything, but hey, you now have one of the only Switch Lites currently that have two Y buttons, no B button at all, so those tutorials be a bit harder. Also, we've seen Zelda Breath of the Wild in VR on something like the Switch, but there has been a project that's been ongoing on Cemu, which is the Wii U emulator on PC currently, where they are trying to get Zelda Breath of the Wild into like full VR with I get much more capable hardware, we'll say, and BSOD Gaming actually posted a video, as you're seeing here, in 4K 60 frames per second of just that. An amazing looking VR experience in Breath of the Wild. This is going to be something else. They're trying to make it so it's a fully playable game, it seems, in all VR. And from what they were showing there, that probably looks amazing with a good VR headset. Now, it does appear that BSOD Gaming has a pretty good setup with a 1080 Ti and everything, but pushing at times over 100 frames per second is going to give you a pretty good image with the quality of the resolution, and of course, how fast the frame rate is. It's going to give you a better experience, and I do like all of the creative stuff they're doing with Cemu rather than just straight up emulate the game and move along. They are doing a lot, whether it's high resolutions, high frame rates, or straight up VR on some, again, capable headsets and hardware, but we'll see how much further they go with this, and currently it's going to be released at some point as an alpha, so hey, if you have a good PC, a an actual copy of the game that you bought, and at that point, a good headset and computer, yeah, you could technically try it out. And guys, some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's talk about this Nvidia Shield TV Pro. I'm not kidding. Apparently, Pro is in the title, and what has that done? Well, it's sparked quite a bit of conversation around the Switch Pro, which there have been a lot of talks about an upgraded Switch model at some time, and Nintendo's history doesn't exactly play against that with obviously things like the new 3DS and everything. They've done this before with handhelds, and the Switch, of course, is a hybrid, so it does fall into line with that. And we have the Switch Lite, which went the opposite direction, where it made the system cheaper, which makes sense to do first as early in the lifespan as you can, so that you do build up, obviously, an install size, which we'll talk about later on in the show because we have some actual numbers from Nintendo. But the Switch Pro is something that enthusiasts have been asking for so they can get better resolutions or better frame rates. Specifically, I hear that a lot in third-party games, although I think Xenoblade could also use a bit of a bump as well, just to make it look that much better. So when we see this listing here, this was actually spotted by Android TV Rumors that appeared on Amazon. And what's interesting about this is it is still using a Tegra X1 processor. However, they do claim a 25% boost in processing power, so it's just going to be faster than the older Shield TV. It will also have Dolby Vision. It's going to have 4K upscaling and all of that. Here's the thing. This most likely, I'm going to say most likely because I don't have it in front of me. I don't have a teardown ready to go right now or anything. We can't take a picture of the chip and put it out there. To me, most likely, this is going to be the chip that is currently in the Switch Lite and the Switch Revision. But there's a bit of a difference here. Nvidia is not really interested in this obviously being a handheld, so there's really nothing they have to worry about when it comes to clock speeds or power draw. The older one, I believe, would have throttling issues at times if they overclocked it too much, but in its current form, it actually was a very good emulation machine, and now we're getting one that appears to be using that same chip in the Switch Lite and the Switch Revision. Just, it doesn't have to worry about clock speeds. They're just going to clock it up to whatever they can and go. So we will see I think the most we can get out of this chip, we're going to see in this form. Now, of course, people are hoping that at some point the Switch Revision or the Switch Lite can get hacked and they can overclock it and find out all of that stuff. But basically, Nintendo had an option. It seemed like they could have gone either way. They could have clocked the chip up higher and lost that battery life, or gone the opposite direction, which is the way that they did, and just kept clocks the same, right, across the board. So it basically runs all the games pretty much the same, and then just get better battery life, which they thought, hey, you know what? Most people right now, probably with the minimal gains they would have gotten from that, would prefer the extra battery life. And to be honest, yeah, I'm kind of in that camp. Actually, I'd rather the battery life be longer because, I mean, if we really look at it, you probably wouldn't gain that much in terms of performance unless you did do some major upgrades to things like memory bandwidth, or you just had a better chip, more capable chip in general. That does kind of put us in the mindset of, is this what people want for something like a Switch Pro, or do they want a clean break? Because what I keep hearing about the Switch Pro sounds more and more like people just want the next generation Switch. I mean, I guess you could do something like just upgrade the Switch Pro completely, but then is it worth putting games on what will probably be a much smaller install size than what's currently out there? We're going to get a report from Nintendo pretty soon that I think is going to put the Switch probably around 40 million, maybe more. And that's going into the holidays, right? So what happens then? Next year? I mean, is the Switch Pro going to be worth developing for right away if they're trying to build up a base of just 1 million people first? Or will developers say, well, I want my stuff to also run on the regular Switch because that's where all of the people are right now? I mean, yeah, it'd be cool if you got the Switch Pro, but it will always be held back by the regular Switch then. So is it worth doing that, or is it worth Nintendo to just start really pushing towards next generation a couple of years from now? It's really hard to say. From me, though, looking at it from a business standpoint, I don't think the Switch Pro makes that much sense to really develop solely for. It'll be like the Xbox One X and the Xbox One situation. If you can't leave behind the old Switch, which I don't think they will because there's just too many people there, is it worth developing specifically for the Switch Pro? You guys let me know about that down below. But the Nvidia Shield TV Pro just appears to be the same chip, just no restrictions when it comes to things like battery life and heat. Next up, we'll talk about Jedi Fallen Order. We did have quite a few reviews that came out. I was going through a few. I liked Easy Allies. They did a very good preview on it, and they described a game that I was really hoping this would be. So I'm very excited for this game now coming out next month. I mean, what it is? Yeah, it's a month away now. I am very excited for this game, especially now. After I saw that snippet from E3, I was less excited, but some of the stuff being described in these previews is great. Now, it does sound like it's going to be pulling from all different genres. I've heard Uncharted. I've heard some Metroid thrown in there. Dark Souls seems to be brought up quite a bit, and we keep saying this about a lot of games. Is this going to be the Dark Souls of Jedi games, of Star Wars games? Honestly, it sounds like it might be, and you know what? Someone's going to run with that headline or that subheading when they bring it out, because based around some of the things, whether it's going to your camp for your fire, you literally have like fire and you sit down at it and it respawns enemies but then heals you, and at that time you can also use your experience to fill out a skill tree. It does start to sound more and more like a Souls game, and Sekiro's been thrown in there where you of course are trying to break your enemy opponent across from you as you're fighting them. But some of the things I really liked, not only is that we have a massive skill tree, it also sounds like we're going to have quite a bit of customization when it comes to our lightsaber, all of which takes place on your ship. And while you are customizing and flying around on your ship, there is loading going on in the background. So they are trying to avoid load screens by basically disguising them. Think of the Mass Effect elevators, for example. However, they're going to do them seemingly in more moving set pieces so that you are basically distracted from the whole point of the game loading in the background, which is good. I like that. But I love the idea of a massive skill tree. This is something that was putting people off. There's no dismemberment on humans, so things like stormtroopers, but droids and creatures all appear to be pretty much able to be dismembered, which sounds weird, but if you've been playing the Jedi series for a while, that's something that we've had since back in the day. And I get it, that might turn people off, but your lightsaber still feels powerful. That's the biggest thing. You don't want it to feel like a baton that you're hitting people with like we had with The Force Unleashed. No, this one feels like a strong lightsaber, and it sounds great. The sounds, music, all of that sounds good so far from what they're showing us, so I'm excited. I'm going to be talking about it when it comes out, of course, and here's hoping, I'm just going to put this out there, that this is Game of the Year quality. My one concern is it's EA. So, loot boxes, microtransactions, we'll see. Next up, speaking of microtransactions and all kinds of extra monetization after the $60, we did get a bit of a clarification on what Call of Duty is going to do after the fact. Basically, after it comes out, how are they going to keep getting money from us even after spending $60? It seems like we at least got some sort of explanation. Now, this is, of course, from Infinity Ward and Activision trying to, it seems anyway, set gamers' minds at ease, because we heard about loot boxes that were kind of in the code, supply drops, and while they didn't necessarily go out and absolutely say no loot boxes, they said they were going to introduce a battle pass system rather than loot boxes. So they didn't necessarily say there won't ever be loot boxes, which CD Projekt Red does that, so they could do it, but they didn't. They just said they're going to be bringing a battle pass system in. And you can, in fact, see some of the bullet points here that they talked about. We are introducing a new battle pass system, not a loot box system. Again, not necessarily ruling that out forever. All functional content that is an impact on game balance, such as base weapons and attachments, can be unlocked simply by paying the game. And the new battle pass system will allow players to see the content that they are earning or buying. Battle passes will launch timed to new post-launch live seasons, so you can unlock cool new Modern Warfare themed content that matches each season. So this is an idea that, of course, we saw that I remember seeing introduced with something like Fortnite. It has been adopted by other games. I believe Destiny 2 has done it. We've seen PUBG do it. And I'm not necessarily sold on the idea of a battle pass system being part of a $60 game. The idea with Fortnite is it's free and they got to make money somehow, and most of us understand that with a free game. And the battle pass system has gone over very, very well with players. The only issue here is they're taking stuff from what is a free game and dropping it into a $60 game, and because it's based on seasons, you could see that popping up quite a bit. And here's the other thing, doesn't necessarily mean that loot boxes are really, really out of the picture, because it could always show up. So they're not going to have battle passes ready to go at launch. They say they want to make sure everything is good to go day one, but I'm more on the side of they want to kind of scope out and see how things are, and then again, 3 months from now, from when it launches, maybe in like January, February, you could see some supply drops. I just want to put that out there now, so I'm on the record that it could happen. But if I had to pick one, Battle Pass definitely over loot boxes, but I'd rather have none of it and just get a $6 game and be done. But there you go. Cosmetic items, it seems, Battle Passes, coming sometime after launch for Call of Duty. And our last bit of news, let's talk about a PR statement put out by Nintendo, kind of showcasing what the Switch has been able to do in the US. This is based around, of course, seemingly timed around when the MPDs were going to come out, but they did put this press release out. Let's read from it so you can see it here. It says, as we enter our third holiday season, Nintendo Switch is creating smiles and enjoying broad appeal with more than 15 million consumers across North America playing their favorite games whenever and wherever they like. In this holiday, we are bringing Switch owners even more fresh and unique entertainment experiences, Ring Fit Adventure, Luigi's Mansion 3, Pokemon Sword and Shield, and Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games 2020, adding the system's large and diverse library of games. So there we have it. The Switch has now done 15 million in, they say, North America. That is pretty good. That is very, very good, actually. Now, of course, North America is one of their bigger regions, obviously. It's probably their biggest one, I would assume. And here's the thing. Between North America and then we see Japan having nearly 10 million units at this point. Just between those two regions, it's almost 25 million. And then, of course, you have other parts of the world and everything. So the Switch is doing what Nintendo wants it to do, which is build a massive install base. We're going to find out more numbers from them pretty soon, where they'll update their site just based on overall worldwide sales numbers for games and, of course, the system and everything. And here's the thing. This is going to be the first holiday where they have a $200 system with the Switch Lite, which will help parents buy multiple systems for kids. So it's already very, very good right now in North America with 15 million systems sold, but that to them is the start. I do think the Switch is, in their mind, a 100 million unit seller, and that's how they want to kind of combat the next-gen systems, is just by having a massive amount of people playing the Switch. That's how they go to developers and say, well, we have the numbers, so come to us. But we'll see what happens going into this holiday, coming out of it, and what they can put up in this this holiday season for them. It's going to be big, and we'll see what they come out with the other side, but so far, so good. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This one is from Gundam saying, Nintendo to Blizzard, okay, that's it, you lost your invitation to Smash Bros. You know, I would have been very interested to see what would have happened if they had indeed announced Tracer as being part of Smash Brothers instead of like Terry. That, especially now, would have been very interesting, because they can't necessarily ignore the whole situation, but I mean, I guess Tracer wouldn't have maybe come out until later this year, although BlizzCon would have been right around that. So Nintendo would have been introducing Tracer next to possible protests all over the place with BlizzCon and this whole situation. It is tough, because Overwatch, I'm sure, is something Nintendo wanted to push to the moon, but they had to their event got canceled. They haven't really been talking much about it, and it's been a whole situation around Nintendo, Blizzard, Overwatch, and just everything else. It's been bad, but I would have been interested to at least see how Nintendo would have navigated that situation. And ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit the like button, really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about today, whether it is the Nvidia Shield TV Pro, and I guess the correlation to the Switch Pro. I'm not really seeing it right now, because that appears to be the same chip that we already have in our Switch Lite and Switch Revision. Let me know what you think about that down below. And then what about Jedi Fallen Order? I think so far so good. It's looking good, but EA's always there. We'll see. Thanks, guys, for watching. Have a great weekend. I'll see you back here Monday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time for Newswave.